and we're going to play like this was at 7 o'clock whenever we were starting to begin with. So thank you all for coming. Thank you for your interest in being Missouri State Archives, what we call eVolunteer. I actually want to introduce the folks on the panel with me tonight. Christina Miller is there. She's our head of reference, and actually at a higher level coordinates a lot of our databases and things that go online. Down in my right bottom corner is Liana Twente. She's our eVolunteer coordinator. So if you get an email about volunteer projects in the future or in the past, Liana is probably the person you got those from. Maeve Prusnick is our outreach coordinator. Maeve is fairly new, but she basically helps with all our social media and a lot of our public outreach really all over the world. So we appreciate them. They're going to be my co-pilots tonight. As in the past, I have been the trainer on this because I'm a poor enough and slow enough typist that we can learn a lot from my mistakes. And so they're going to be looking at the chat tonight and telling me whenever you point out a mistake that I make or asking questions so that we can learn along the way. So I'm going to start sharing my screen, and I'm going to start with my first slide here. I don't see that it's sharing. Is that sharing with you all?
No.
All right, hopefully it is now.
Yes.
So I wanted to preface this by saying that you all are wonderful. So over the last 20 plus years, our online volunteers, which actually were not online initially, but were our eVolunteers that we would send database information to and actually photocopies originally. You all have either completely created these indexes that we have online or have been a major asset to those projects. So of course, the most used is our death certificates that are now up to 1973. But all these other projects you have participated in over the years, including our 3 projects that are on From the Page. And that's our county tax lists, our Missouri State Penitentiary registers of inmates that we're going to talk about tonight. And we also have up and may in the near future have a training seminar similar to this for the St. Louis Register of Deaths project that's also on From the Page right now. So we have 3 projects up.
It is actually St. Louis, to clarify, St. Louis Register of Deaths is not on From the Page. It's not one of our From the Page projects.
Oh, okay.
But it's one where, where we email back and forth with, I'd share images and the Excel spreadsheet to them, which is kind of our beginning, how we started the project in the first place.
And the reason that's easy for me to confuse, not on that list, is the index for the St. Louis Criminal Court that our From the Page volunteers just finished. And that was a massive project that you all, just flew through. So anyway, and I don't know how many, yes, exactly, applause. I don't know how many of you are From the Page volunteers, but it's awesome that you do all that you do with that. All right, so I'm going to try and share my page again, and this time with the website to show folks how to get to From the Page. The easiest way to get to From the Page is just type in From the Page on your web browser. I'm using Google tonight. Actually, Edge does some auto-filling for you that may be helpful or may not be helpful. So if you use it, you just want to be aware of that. So I'm going to go in tonight into From the Page. It already has my username and password. If you don't have a username and password, you'll have to create an account to use this online indexing form. But once you do that, you can go to Find a Project right up here. If you've never been to our Missouri State Archives page before. And you can search for Missouri State Archives. If you search,
I've also put a link in the comments or in the chat that takes you directly to From the Page.
So Here it gives an overview of our projects, our county tax list that is active right now. And then I'm working mainly with another staff member as the admin on those projects. The St. Louis Criminal Court Index that I was referencing, I think that's the data entry on that is done. Those two parts of it, and then the Missouri State Penitentiary registers of inmates. Once you're signed in and you've done an indexed page from a project, you don't have to click on it here like this, which is how that you would start with any of our projects, but you can actually go to the dashboard and it will show you the list of the projects that you have access to. And so in this case, primarily it's those criminal court indexes that as an admin, I can see the Missouri State Penitentiary Register of Inmates and the county tax lists. There's a video already out there on the county tax lists on our YouTube page, I believe, and Leanna can send you a link to that as well if you can't find it, but that walks you through doing the county tax list. There for a while, we have three or four folks that were we couldn't keep up with them. I think they've moved over to the penitentiary database, and y'all are doing great work there. Leanna, how many volumes do we have left in the Missouri State Penitentiary database?
I think there's about 25, maybe 30 volumes left, but at the rate that we're going, it's not going to last too long. I really think that this project could wrap up within the year.
Excellent. So,
which
well,
is incredible.
Hopefully with the folks online tonight, maybe even sooner than that. So whenever you click on the Missouri State Penitentiary Register of Inmates, you come to this page. You're maybe going to see a little bit more with me than you with my screen as an admin than you would normally do. And it looks like volume 72 is almost done. I'm not going to work in that tonight just for the sake of ease. I'm going to work in volume 74 and click on that. When you go to that, you're not going to see this pages that need reviewed probably. You're just going to see a button that says pages that need transcribed, and you can just click on the first one that comes up whenever you're doing it. It'll look something like this, where you can just click on the very first page and it'll bring up an image of that. So the way I have it set up here, I have my layout with the image on the top and the data entry on the bottom, but you can change that to left, right, top, or bottom for your image. And that allows you to choose the way that you do that. Now, I've intentionally not done a lot of this recently because I knew we were doing this. So I'm going to try and learn right along with you on this project. There are instructions down here at the bottom that says transcription conventions. And so you can click on more help and get all the details you need for that. I'm actually going to be a bad volunteer tonight and not read these, even though I generally know our standards. But that will allow us to reiterate some of the things that we know need to be done. So it shows that the last one that I typed apparently was 40,958. So the volunteers have already done another 500 since I did one of these yesterday, just to make sure that it would work. So, all right, so I'm going to go ahead and get started in here. If there are any other questions or comments we need to address before starting. Okay, so the register number is normally stamped, at least in these volumes we're working on now, in the top right of the first half of the page opening. So you're going to have two pages, a left and a right, and the register number is going to be at the top right of that first page. So I'm going to type the register number. That's kind of the key number that everything with our inmates are tied to, their mug shots and all kinds of other records. So that's really important for us to get right. Now, I already see something that I'm going to have to ask about. So I'm going to guess that they're wanting me to type in Jeffrey Lynn Smith, even though his inmate register is actually under Jeffrey Smith. But to get that full name, that true name, I'm going to add the middle name in as well. And I think that is right. He doesn't show an alias. So I'm going to skip that. Age 27. Race is listed as white. And we always just type what we see. And so if it's an abbreviation, we do that. So let's see, occupation is carpenter.
John, real fast.
Yeah.
We have one request for you to possibly zoom in.
On.
Because it's the text you're typing too. But I will say that on your screen, you might be able to, not on John's screen, but for the attendees, right above the image, it should have something that allows you to kind of zoom in a little bit there too.
All right, so is that better, or what else do I need to zoom in on, Christina?
Otherwise, if you could just zoom in your whole like web page.
I mean, it's huge, so.
I think they're less interested in the image of the register and more about the site. There you go.
Better?
Perfect.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. All right.
Yeah.
So
now we did have one person pointed out that you spelled Jeffrey incorrectly. That should be E-R-Y.
So I misspelled it twice. So now third time's the charm. All right, Jeffrey. Thank you. Thank you very much. So
and you also skipped the birthplace, is what they're saying.
I was just coming back to that. So it says the birthplace is St. Louis. And you don't have to necessarily type them in order, but it kind of helps to not skip something if you do. So, all right, so we're going to scroll down and look for former imprisonment, which I think is actually on the other. Nope, it's on the bottom of this page. So if you ever notice a social security number is not redacted with a white box, because some of these people may still be living, put that in the notes field, which is the very last box down here on the bottom. So that would be really helpful to just flag those in case when these were imaged that was missed. And we've had other projects, if you've worked on in the past, that have had a similar issue with that. So he doesn't have any former imprisonment. So we're going to skip that. Let's see, the parents. They on the next page.
No, they're at the bottom of the left hand. There you go.
Okay, I see a mother. So Bernice Sanders. All right, and a spouse, Debbie Smith. And it looks like that no dad is listed and there are not any other relations. All right, so we've got that. And that just allows us to keyword search them as names as well. So now we have the offense type, and this is where you type what you see. So PG, which stands for pled guilty, but you just type what you see. And the offense is burg, which would be burglary, second degree, but I'm typing exactly, or trying at least, just type exactly what I see. So we have that written out twice. Once burg second degree, once burg in the second degree. So I'm just going to type what I see first. I don't see a reason to duplicate it unless Liana tells me differently here. So it says the sentence is 3 years. When we abbreviate,
So John, since there's two separate charges of burglary and second degree, you can either type them both out and separate with a semicolon, or enter burglary second degree, 2 charges. That either one of those would be fine.
Okay, so I put a semicolon and typed it right there because I'm already here. So, all right, so I put in the 3-year sentence. Do we need to put in the 333 CC there, or just the years?
Yes. Yes.
Okay, so type what you see.
So what that means is there's both of those charges are 3-year sentences. The CC means it's concurrently, so they're done at the same time.
Okay. So the term of the court is over here, term of court. And do you want me to type that out the way it is or put in 1981?
1981.
Okay. So I know the convention is 4 digits for years, and so Jasper County is the county. The date received is normally is the little template there shows me it's supposed to be 2-digit month, 2-digit day, 4-digit year. And then jail time is 209 days. I believe that's actually how much time they'd already served in jail before they went to prison. So that's locally as they were waiting for trial. And then full time, we've got a minimum and a maximum, and there's a year difference in those. So I know that I'm going to type one of those, and then Liana's going to tell us what she wants us to do with the other one.
We're just going to use the maximum, which is the 1983.
Okay.
Yeah, in lieu of the full-time, we will use them.
Okay. All right. So then there's a discharge date normally down here, and that's going to be the latest discharge date in here too. Is that correct?
Yes.
All right. So the latest one I see is 10/14/1983. You'll see that I'm using hash mark or slashes between 2-digit day, 2-digit month. All right, discharge information. I'm assuming that that's right here where it says paroled and all of that information. So, and this matches the data that we've been typing for how long, Christina? Has this project been going on? It was actually our first project.
Yeah, we started this project in 1999. It was our very first eVolunteer project, and it's hitting its 25 years this year.
And how many 100,000 entries do we have?
So many. Because it's been indexing since the 1836 register, and we're in these, right? So we're in 81. Like we're
in 81.
And from the page, it's really picked up the pace. So now you can see how conscious I'm trying to be after making that typing error so early. So so it looks like he actually did what he was supposed to in prison, and he was released on the date he was supposed to be released. So that's not often the case. I mean, that's not always the case. All right, so we are looking for escapes, paroles, and detainers, and there's nothing there. We didn't have anything extra. So I'll give y'all just a second to tell me if I've done anything wrong. Okay.
So on the sentence, it looks like where you've got the parentheses with the 3 CC, make sure to notate or make sure to include a comma between the 3 and a 3. That just means 3-year sentence plus a 3-year sentence.
Okay, and I see the comma. I see the comma now if I zoom in. I guess once you do about 10 or 15 of these, you kind of learn that pattern and you're able to do it a lot more efficiently that way. All right, you're not going to have a done button because you're not an administrator, but I'm going to hit save.
Yes, they will.
Oh, they will? Okay.
Yeah, they have a done button.
Okay. Well, I'm going to hit save. Do I need to hit done as well then, Liana?
Yes. Hitting the done button will complete it and send it to our reviewers for approval.
Okay. So there's a done button for them just like there is for the admins. All right, so I'm going to go to the next page then. And
so
we do have a couple of
questions we had.
Okay.
Was if it says Mr. and Mrs. last name, how do you enter the name?
And we haven't got that on our example, but
yeah,
go ahead.
We do come across this fairly often where it'll say like Mr. and Mrs. John Smith and completely omits the name of the mother. in that case, if it's both, mother and father listed, we'll just put John Smith in the father's name field. Now, if it says just Mrs. John Smith, if it's just the mother that they're using as their point of contact, just go ahead and put Mrs. John Smith. If we have something there, that's the only time we'll use the prefixes, Mr. and Mrs. Yeah, that's all I have for that.
Okay, what was the second question, Christina?
What about the FBI number?
Oh, that's a great question. I had that thought when I was working on these previously. Do we index that, Liana?
No. So there's a number of numbers and codes around the page that we are ignoring. So actually, right above the offense on the right-hand page, you see there's a cause number. That's basically the case number. We're ignoring that. We don't need that at the moment. There's all sorts of notations at the top left of the left side page. We don't need any of that. We're just looking for the fields that are listed on the form.
That is a great question, because from a research perspective, when we started in the 1800s, they didn't have FBI numbers, so our database that this feeds into doesn't have that. This is a great example, though, that our original database, we were indexing marks and scars, and you can see why we stopped doing that, because this guy was tattooed from head to toe, apparently, and that would be a lot for you to type. So we haven't been doing that anymore. Right. I typed in the wrong thing in occupation. I can see that.
That's the birthplace.
Oh, yeah, that's birth date, not birthplace. We're not putting the birth date in, are we?
No.
Yeah. Another thing that if the original database had, we probably would do that differently as well.
150 years of registers don't have a birth date as a record, which is why it's really only the 70s and 80s ones that do. The 1970s and 1980s.
And that can be calculated from the admissions year and their age. So that information is sort of being captured with two other fields. So interesting. Cemetery work as his occupation. So let's scroll down here and see if he had any former imprisonment.
I think cemetery, or was that carpentry? No, that's cemetery.
I'm reading it as cemetery work. So maybe he fixed the little cranes that put the vaults on the caskets or something. I don't know. So, or I think they're actually not connected. Now, I know there's a comma between that, Leanna, but I put a semicolon because that's typically what we put between two distinct things on the same line. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. And I'm not sure if that's in one of the conventions or not. That's one of the reasons why it's great for us to be doing this. And here we go. Mrs. Ruth Kelly. If it was Mrs. John Kelly, it would be the comment that she'd already talked about. So I'm just going to type in Ruth Kelly for the mother's name, and then under other relations, I'm going to put Rick Kelly, and then are we going to put brother there, or how do we punctuate that?
So before the name Rick Kelly, you will define what their relationship is, and then put a colon. So just above that field where you're typing is says other relations, and kind of gives you the format that we're looking for.
Okay. Wow, it even has a full phone number where that far into the end of the 20th century. Okay, so we're going to go over here to offense type now, and A lot of these are going to be pled guilty, found guilty. This one's not BG, but PG. The offense is robbery. First degree. And that's all we have there. His sentence was 10 years. Type what you see. His court term was May 1981. He was also from Jasper County.
You can
You
just
often
type
see-
Jasper instead of Jasper County.
Okay. And his date received was May 12th, 1981. His jail time was 52 days. You see clusters from the same counties, I feel like, because they came in probably on the same van or bus at the same time and get adjacent numbers. But let's see. So his max time is what we put in here. So that's 03 20 1991. But his discharge date was March 20, 1984. His discharge information says paroled. And you're still wanting us to repeat the date, is that correct?
Yes.
Just for my edification, what is the CMCC? Is that the facility he was at?
Yes, and I'm trying to remember what CMCC stands for. That's one I don't see as often as some of the others.
Yeah, if it was a woman, I would think of maybe it's
Central Missouri Correctional Center, maybe.
Yeah, that's what it is. It is Central Missouri. All right. So no escapes or paroles, which is probably why you got, now this parole would be different than the one up here. You don't have to repeat it, right? You just type what's in that box. So,
Right. Yeah.
and these dates are super helpful for us. All right. So is there anything else that I need to fix on this one? These are super helpful for us because these dates tie to other records we have and help us find those records. So you may think this is somewhat repetitive, but these are kind of the magic decoder dates for a lot of the other things we have. So all right, I'm going to save this one, mark it done. I think you can just hit done. You don't have to hit save maybe as well on that. And it's the approve button that you don't have. So that's what's showing now. So I moved on to the next one.
Could you go back to the first one, John?
The number 3.
Yeah.
Okay.
We had a question about his probation violation.
Yeah, I see that.
Oh,
Patron Linda was just confused about something about that. Which part of that? You want to expand on your question, Linda?
Well, but he was released on his regular date, so it seems to not have had any impact on his release. That's a great question.
yeah. I haven't seen probation violation noted in that particular location. Usually, it appears on the discharge line, and it'll say, paroled on this date, returned on PV or parole violation on such and such date. So yes, if that's the case, you would enter it on the discharged line. But this doesn't really have any details about the parole violation or probation violation. I'm not really sure.
But if it had been down
What we would
here
do
with
about
a
that.
date, you would have definitely typed it.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, great question. And I didn't notice that when we're coming through. I think we're on image 5 because I don't recognize that name. So our register number is 41468. Let's scroll down just a little bit. So Robert, Howard, Nickoson. That's what I'm seeing, Nicholson. He also doesn't have an alias. These are really uninteresting inmates. Some of them are a lot of fun.
He does have an alias, John. The true name that's listed on the second line is different from.
Okay. So am I just putting Howard Robert in this?
Howard Robert Nickoson. Yeah, the full name.
Okay. So he just is transposing his first and middle names. And so that's what's going on with that. Chicago.
John, you spelled his last name wrong.
On the second entry. Okay. His race is white. His occupation. See, this is why we have me doing this, because they would type it perfectly everything, as will you all, I'm sure. So, he's a laborer. Interesting. It gives us religion. So his mother's name is ILA. Space M period. We always use a period after anything that we abbreviate. And then his spouse's name is Donna. Nickoson. Right, and I don't see any other relations. So we're already getting faster. Even with me typing. Oh, if the number's on both pages, that's great. So he pled guilty, so PG to robbery, second degree. Sentence was 8 years. His term of court was February. You want us to go ahead and spell that out, or just what you see?
You can type what you see. That's fine.
Okay. And the county is Cape Gur. Now, would you prefer us to go look that up, or just type what we see there?
You can, in this case, yes, you can type what you see. Fortunately, I know what that county will be.
Yeah. And half of them are misspelled if I was going to type it anyway, because Gerardo is harder to spell than what you would think. So, all right. So the date received is going to be May 12th, 1981. And the jail time was 204 days. So it took him a little bit longer to matriculate to the Missouri State Archive. To the Missouri State Penitentiary, and even longer to matriculate, I guess, to the Missouri State Archives. His max time is going to be October 19, 1988. So he could have, now he's parole. So he could have gotten close to having to move to the new facility. So looks like his discharge date is going to be the same date. No, 5 years earlier. So 10/19/1983. His discharge information says he was paroled 10/19/1983 from MSP. So now gradually you will learn what these institutions are. Oh, wow. Here's some interesting stuff down here. So detainer. Is that a colon maybe? State's attorney. Effingham County Courthouse, maybe. I don't know. comma, P.O. Box 864, Effingham, Illinois. No punctuation there, so 05/15/1981. So it looks like that the folks in Illinois were looking for him as well as us. So, and again, that's one of those things that keys into that FBI number. But these detainers will kind of help track that down, and they'll have the image once we are able to put these online too. All right. So anything on that one? I hit save
Looks
and
good.
done. And move to the 6th one. So
Okay, there's a question in the chat about from Carol
Yeah.
saying if you use the full name here, why didn't you do it on the first one? So I think the image that you have pulled up right now is a good example. So in this case, John, as you're typing it out, I would put in Keith Dwayne Hayes, only because we we see his middle initial as D. We can pretty well assume that Dwayne is the middle name that he's given here. On the previous image that you just finished, the names were kind of swapped around, which it could be assumed as an alias. We just want to make sure that we're showing that he does go by Robert Howard Nickerson as well as Howard Robert Nickerson.
Yeah.
So that is technically an alias.
So what's odd here is his birth name is not his inmate name. So I've gone back to that previous
Correct.
entry. And so his birth name was Howard Robert Nickerson, which from the sake of the Missouri State Penitentiary was an alias. But his name that he was convicted in the court system with was Robert Howard Nickerson. But again,
Correct.
Another great question. And we learn things whenever, or at least I do, whenever we do these projects, because y'all ask such good questions. So keep those coming. All right. So that's a little different than this one. Like you said, that's just a fuller name, like entry number 3, the first one, where we're putting the fullest name here. Keith D is how he was convicted on his sentence and judgment papers, probably, but his full name is Keith Dwayne Hayes, and that's sufficient. We don't have to put an alias because he doesn't have any nicknames. There's not any weirdness on this one.
If there's ever any doubt, you can always just put exactly what is written for both of those lines, and our approvers will take care of that.
Yeah. And if you ever have a question or something you want to flag, just put it in that notes field at the bottom. And that's something that whenever we see something in a notes field, we'll look at it and just make sure that it is what it needs to be. So, all right. So his birth date is still not his birthplace. So St. Joseph, Missouri. Old habits die hard. You type the race here as it's seen to. We will update that when we add it to the database. His occupation is none. Former imprisonment, he does have one. That gives us his inmate number of 355-68. I think that stands for direct release, but I'm just guessing that. And that's the date that he was released.
Oh, make sure to look at the
Parents.
parents and spouses.
Yep, we go. So the father's name is Lawrence Hayes. Then we know, whoops. So it's the relationship and a colon, Arlene Wilkerson. So we've got those now. So, and you can use these buttons over here to adjust brightness and to rotate images and to zoom in and out. So it makes it easier for you to zoom around. I just use the little hand thing and move around most of the time. But there are all kinds of ways that you can do that. It's pretty flexible indexing platform in that regard. Burglary and second degree. And oops, well, it's in a notes field. It should be fine. Stealing, right? His sentence was 4 years. So, Yana, am I supposed to be putting punctuation before that since it's 2 4-year concurrent sentences?
Yeah, you'll put in parentheses 4, 4 CC.
I was actually talking about up here, since those are two
Oh.
separate charges. Or you just type
No,
what you see and we'll fix it on the back end.
Just type what you see. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. You may think that we're having a kind of like a broken record, and just reinforces other than the date format. That's exactly what we want you to do most all the time, is type what you see. All right. So Buchanan County, the date received. Yeah. Another question.
Term of court isn't the date of sentence. It's the April 1981.
Right, full year there, date received. I've got that right. Jail time, 94 days. Full time is 2, 6. And you'll get to where you can type those leading zeros kind of in your sleep even. So, right. Lots of discharge information. Is discharge date.
One of the questions we're getting is when you actually do have like 2 terms of court, 2 charges, how do you separate them?
You would separate them with a semicolon. The reason I didn't do that here is because it has an and distinctly there. But if it was 2 distinct charges, oftentimes you'll see some kind of different punctuation here and you'd put a semicolon. But Leanna can also monitor that on the back end. It's easier just to type what you see. But if there's more than one, like all this stuff down here, those are all going to get separated by semicolons. All right, I'm seeing the latest date of discharge here. It looks like it's 2/6/1985. But there's a lot here. So
Can you scroll down the image a little bit more?
all right, so there's a 7/12 right there.
Yeah,
and there's
I think
another
that's-
one, and there's another one there.
So that's the max time for that particular sentence. So what you're going to
Yeah.
use for the discharge date is that 7/12/85.
Well, what about this January 1st, 1999?
Oh, well, yeah. Whichever
Oh.
is the latest date. Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Oh wait, the max. No, I'm sorry. looks like that's just what is listed for the max sentence. That's not the discharge date.
So we don't even know that he was discharged from this book.
Right. And we
Right,
see a lot of
it's
that.
still-
That's not completely
And it's,
uncommon.
but it's still the latest date. Okay. And then you want me to type all this stuff.
Yes.
All right. We're going to be here for a minute.
As a fun fact, these books end in the late 1980s, and then they switch to a database system. And once they switch to the database system, they do stop updating the books. So if his discharge date is in the 90s, it's not going to be reflected in the books.
Got it. So these are just going to, some of them are just going to take a little while to do this because he was a repeat offender. All right. So I am skipping the cause number. And then I'm assuming this down here is a second charge, a second offense. Is that right?
Yes. Which you'll also include on the same
So I
field.
need to go back up here and add that one.
Yes.
Okay.
And separate with a semicolon.
All right. So very good question from the eVolunteer, because that is exactly what we're seeing here. So I actually need to go here and put in another semicolon, EG, and a semicolon there, and then put stealing, colon, burglary, second degree, persistent. He was persistent. Offender. I mean, over time, historically, I think that was called habitual offenders and maybe some other things too. All right, so then I go back down here, and that makes a little more sense with the dates we're looking at the bottom, because this one was 15 years, 2.5. That's right. Comma, 15, current sentence. It wouldn't be current sentence, it would be current sentence. And then the term of court is going to be the same. Do I need to type that twice? Or do I need to type it 3 times because there's another one here?
So if there's multiple charges that are all in the same term of court, you can just list it once.
Okay. All right. So, and
then in this case where there's 2 separate terms of court, April 81 and then July of 85, it looks like, you'll just separate those. Yep, with a semicolon.
okay. So Buchanan County, so we don't have to semicolon that. So the date received, it's just sentence begins because he was serving them concurrently. And he had no jail time on that because he got credit for it on the previous charge. So we don't have to update that. His full-time is actually this day, or is it now this day? I think it's January 1st. 1999. All right. And then I'm back down here to my original semicolon. All right, parole. 10, 6, 1983, semicolon. I'm reading that as returned RET, maybe. EV, parole violation, July 12th, 1985, semicolon, completed, 2.5, Here. Sentence. Clause. Number. CR 581-14 FX. I think we could say Hugh on that one. So I think I have a lowercase t there. I feel like that was an uppercase T. Yes. All right. How many other typos can we find?
All right, there's a couple of things that have been pointed out in the chat. So I think there was a couple of different jail time days listed.
Yeah,
There's none up there, which
556
we'll,
right
we'll
there.
ignore. Yeah, if there's none, we just ignore that. But if there's, so right here, yeah, it'll say 556 days, which we just added. Perfect.
Okay, excellent.
The next one, full-time. So there's multiple full-time or the max sentences, and we will list those out, each individual one, and separate with a semicolon. You picked a complicated one to
No, this is
to
great.
transcribe here.
Yeah, no, this is
Yeah,
great
I mean,
because
it's
it kind of
good.
gives us all. This is like the worst case scenario, or a very bad case scenario at least. So,
Yeah,
all right.
they're not incredibly common, but most of the time it's just the one charge per page.
Yeah,
Nice.
it's just another reason for us to not probably love a persistent offender. So, all right. So I'm going to save that. Are there any other things that folks noticed?
Yeah, Linda noted a date here. Hold on a second. 85. Can you specify what that date is, Linda?
We have several 85 dates. There's this return parole violation one down here, 7/12/85, and we've got
I think
this.
maybe she's referring to the discharge date. Is not the 1999 date.
Yeah,
So
she
on the
noted that she's
discharge
looking at the wrong
line-
date.
Okay, but I seem like unless it's the same date as something else, this is a sentence begin date on the full time. So that's not right. Or maybe it is because they're concurrent. Yeah, okay, it is because they're concurrent. All right, other things before we move on? All right, I'm going to leave this one to Liana to fix that for now. So we're going to go to the next one. So that was too much fun. So, all right, on to the next one. Register number 41470. Robert Lee Dorsey. Okay, I know. I can feel a question coming. Where do I put the junior?
We do put the junior in the last name field. We overlooked that when setting up this project. I apologize profusely.
Okay. There are no aliases because the junior is being used in the first one. And they're the same order and the same spelling, but it could have been a Bobby Lee or something like that, and we would put that in the alias if they had done that. So, all right, so 21 years old, his birthplace is St. Louis, Missouri, and 6'4". White, occupation, vote, deckhand, and factory work. And its G date, 10th grade. Father's name is Robert Dorsey, not Robert Downey, Robert Dorsey, Sr. Mother's name, oh, did that again. Grandmother is Lillian Thacker. Right. On to the right-hand page. Must have missed something. So he pled guilty to burglary, 2nd degree. Five-year sentence. Term of court is January 1979. St. Louis took a little bit longer to get him in jail.
January spelled jam.
Guess I'm getting hungry. So, all right, and St. Louis, date received is going to be May 12th, 1984. His jail time was 283 days. And his full-time date is August 1st, 1985. His discharge date would have been May 1st, 1984. Discharge information is director's release, May 1st, 1984, from Missouri State Penitentiary. No escapes. Oh, there's an escape in return. That's why he ended up doing 7/8. He escaped April 26th, 1982. And he returned April 27th, 1982. Okay. Right. Anything on that one?
I don't think so.
All right. That one was easy compared to the last one.
Oh, go back
Since it's
and make sure you hit done.
Excellent. Okay.
since it's now 10 after 8,
Oh,
are there
yeah.
any questions from the attendees about the project overall or any other projects that we could answer?
Liana, are there things that you know that we didn't cover in the training tonight that need to be pointed out, like other anomalies that are fairly frequent?
I think we covered most of them. But if you have any questions, feel free to leave a note at the bottom of the page, or you can also email me. I'll put my email in the chat. That's the quickest way to go about that.
So the one question I see is when will these be available online to browse for research? I will say that it will probably be a little bit. Our IT department does need to rebuild our database, our current database, in order for us to add new ones. And I guarantee you that they won't work on anything like that until after the November election. Since we are part of the Secretary of State's office, we are actively working on some of the data cleanup we need to do to get the data cleanly into a new database. But we are hoping that maybe sometime kind of early next year, we'll be able to relaunch the database, kind of brand new, that will have a few more abilities than it currently has, with a number of new years. Everything through 1931 is already online, and it has the ability to have the register pages and the mug shots, but we want to add the ability to have pardon records if we have them for individuals, or commutations, or
Fertillion.
measurements is the one I couldn't think of,
Yeah.
that predate the mugshots. So we kind of want all that ability, and the ability to make corrections, which we don't currently have in our current database. So it will be next year. We're hoping earlier next year than later, but that is kind of up to our IT department. And while we think we are the most important department in the office, we are not always. So it kind of depends.
During election years and election petition years, there is a focus on those areas for sure. It takes up some of their time. I'm hoping that we can get the data entry done on this and use that as leverage to do what Christina was saying there, where we're done with the data entry for all of MSP. We'd like to get this kind of moved to the front of the list after the election, to get those online. But there will always be other projects too. And then kind of skipping back a little bit to the county, the difference between what she's talking about with MSP and the county tax lists that are also being indexed here from the page. Those, when we get a few counties done, we're able to add them in because we have the administrative tool for those. And so I won't say we're constantly like every day, but every few months, we're able to take what's been done and add that on, as long as we've done the back end pixie dust things that Christina and Liana do with these things, that normalizes the data and gets it ready to be put into those. And we already have the imaging done on all these because that's what we're using to do the data entry here from the page. But we'd really love for you all to help us and recruit friends that do online indexing as well, to get the Missouri State Penitentiary database project done, so we can leverage it being done with getting our IT staff to get that new database up and available. And then we'll be able to go from 1838?
36.
1836, all the way to when the Missouri State Penitentiary, they closed. Until the digital index came up. And we actually may be able to get their digital index and maybe incorporate that as well. So that's also a possibility that we're working on too. So other questions though? I don't know how to do this without unmuting everyone, but are there folks that have not indexed on from the page before?
I don't see anyone stating that.
All right. Well, then we really appreciate all our core volunteers coming out. Hopefully some of these things tonight will make you more efficient and help you to kind of know the rationale behind some of these things, maybe some of the codes and the keys and that kind of thing. Okay, so I do see one person in the chat that said that they haven't indexed before. So sorry, the only two things we have right now are kind of more difficult than the things we've done in the past. But jump in and give it a try. It does get easier on these projects after you've done 20 or 30 entries, I feel like, or even 10. You get faster and better. You know where things are on the page. You can navigate the page better. Then whenever you've done thousands of them, like I have on the county tax records, you're actually making mistakes, not because of unfamiliarity with them, but actually because you get so comfortable that you kind of get a little lackadaisical. So that's when it's a good problem to have that experience. So, all right. Any other questions?
Like with all of our projects, I just want to stress, like, don't be worried about making mistakes. Staff review them, or, we catch things on the data cleanup. Or for most of our databases, if someone points an error out to us, we can go in and fix it. MSP is not one currently, but eventually. So no mistake is that bad of a thing. We can figure it out.
So is it okay to use autofill? It is, but just pay really close attention. And the example I'll use that we did tonight was the PG, the pled guilty, because we had that one that I had a PG semicolon space PG. If that's the last thing you typed and you use autofill, it would use that on the next one too. So you may have to retype that on the next one. And then over time, it will train the autofill to select the singular PG over the one that had PG semicolon PG. So just be careful with that because it will lead you astray some of the time. And I think you can turn it on both browsers. The way mine are set up, it doesn't do it in Google Chrome, but it does it in Microsoft Edge. So great question. Okay. Well, if there aren't any other questions, I want to thank you again. Thank you to the staff for all that they do on these projects as well. We always say we couldn't have done what we've done on our website without you all. And that's a very, very true statement. So go out and try this and see if it works. If you don't like it, you can do some of the other projects that we have that are more the traditional images and database for the St. Louis death registers, the early St. Louis death registers. You can also watch the video on the tax list. They're much different because there are multiple names on a page and multiple columns. So it gives it a little different look and feel to this as well. So thank you again, and everyone have a great evening.